Hello, so I'm going to do a roundup of an event I went to recently. You Don't Have Any Friends is the name of the event. Also potentially fairly accurate, but yeah, so it's hosted a board in Brum. It's GBHL 90. So the thing with this one is that it's a teams event. So there were 10 teams of 4 people, and the sort of gimmick was that you had to have a army from sort of the Hobbit book that was good, Lord of the Rings army that's good, Hobbit evil, and Lord of the Rings evil. And then the idea is you have 4 games, and you basically do sort of, yeah, I was playing Hobbit good, so I sort of did Hobbit evil first round, then Lord of the Rings good second round, Lord of the Rings evil, and then against the Hobbit good last round. So you sort of did it like that. So it wasn't sort of conventional team event where you sort of pick opponents and stuff, which is good because I hate that, because it just means that if you get thrown under the bus for the sake of the team, you can have a really guff game, but you're like, oh, I'm doing it with the team, and it's just like, Jesus. Anyway, so it wasn't like that. So yeah, it was good. It's a board in Brum, so again, I try to make those ones if I can, just because it's a good crowd and venue, etc. So yes, happy to be signing up for that one. Without sort of getting into the dynamics of the team, I kind of ended up with sort of having to pick a Hobbit good army. Not having to, getting to, because just kind of what people had, it kind of fell that way, sort of made the most sense. So I kind of I have some really guff ones like Thorin's Company, which are fun, but I think you're just going to get sort of thrown around like a dog toy at an event probably. Yeah, it kind of ended up really sort of just being funneled into Halls of Thranduil, which is fine because I was playing Halls of Thranduil at a Club Slow Grow earlier this year, sort of, yeah, end of last year, early this year. So I was doing Usurpers and Halls of Thranduil for that, so I sort of understand how it works and stuff, and the different point levels as well. So first choice was Halls of Thranduil over Rangers of Mirkwood. I think it's just sort of an overall stronger list, and Rangers of Mirkwood can be a bit one-dimensional, and if you get stuck in sort of like Contest of Champions or something, then your Mirkwood elves are going to sort of just fall apart, and you're kind of relying on Legolas to do business, and Legolas just dies to random nonsense all the time. So anyway, so Halls of Thranduil. So again, there's sort of a few choices, but I think fundamentally you take Thranduil. I like him. Well, I really like him on an elk. But I think that's just my taste rather than what's good. So I just stuck him on foot with heavy armor, and then I took Leggy on a horse, but without Orcrist. I thought you're sort of guaranteed 2 out of 4 games for it to be useful, but well, I suppose you're not guaranteed actually, because you can come up against like evil men or something, and then yeah. So I thought it probably wasn't worth it, just because I didn't know how much evil I've been coming up against, and just in terms of sort of points being saved and stuff. So I think the other choice was like, do I take a third hero, and if so, is that captain? Sorry, is that hero a captain, or do I take Tariel? I sort of toyed with Tariel for a bit, but it just really didn't work points wise, because I ended up with like low 20s, I think, in the model count. So I ended up just having the 2 heroes, which is obviously a bit of a weakness in terms of sort of might and positioning. But it meant I was able to have a big old army list with a whole bunch of elf warriors, sort of with various equipment, 3 knights, and then 7 palace guard, and a sentinel for good measure as well. So obviously it's a very sort of good death ball army, and you've got the palace guard who can hang around near Thranduil to get the +1 fight, as well as the +1 to wound that they will get next to Thranduil. So yeah, I won't sort of go too much into their army rules and stuff. Yeah, so that's the list I chose. 2 heroes, lots of elves, 33 models overall. So let's get into the first game. Alrighty, so first game I was up against Birder's Horde, which I was quite happy about because I saw lots of like Radagast's Alliance and Men of the West. And I know I wasn't up against them yet, but I was just a bit like, oh god, what am I going to face at this tournament? But yeah, Birder's Horde's pretty fun and pretty relaxed, as long as you're not playing Recon for the ambush rule. So I was playing Dan Lewis, who was in charge of the Birder list. So his list was pretty straightforward in that it was Birder, 2 Warg chiefs and a captain, and then lots of orcs, a couple of Wargs, and then a few Warg riders. So it's pretty mixed. We're playing Breakthrough. So I think my first choice was, do I deploy right on the halfway line, or do I sort of hang back and do some shooting? Because I had 7 bows and then leggy as well. So whether you sort of thin the herd, try and ping a few wounds on Birder or something. I thought I would give away too much board control. It was tempting because the board was extremely open, because there's sort of 3 big houses for the terrain. So it sort of favoured shooting a fair amount. But I thought I wouldn't risk it. And yeah, Dan deployed sort of as you'd expect, I suppose. Big sort of massive orcs in the middle, Birder right in the centre line, and then sort of wargs. One warg chief on either flank as well. So yeah, pretty standard deployment, I think. Obviously, putting Birder up front was probably the main choice. In that, do you stick him where Thranduil can reach him, and in which case do you try and sort of hope that he kills Thranduil with a lucky strike off and a couple of rends or something, and or whether he tar pits Thranduil, which is another good option. So yeah, I think it's probably a good idea just sticking him out front. And not ambushing on as well, probably, because I think if he didn't ambush on, I then sort of have 2 turns to cause absolute chaos in terms of killing orcs and hopefully wild chiefs and stuff, and then hopefully sort of breaking through his line to his back line and stuff, and sort of a bit of divide and conquer, I suppose. So that was all good. I think the main thing was, I can't remember if it was a priority roll or a heroic move off, but I ended up being able to move first. I think it was just the priority that went uncontested, so I was quite pleased with that. And we spoke after, and I think that was probably one of 2 things I would have changed if I was Dan. Not that he needs my advice at all, as you'll find out. But yeah, just because it meant that I was able to pop the wheel with Thranduil to make him cause terror, which wasn't that important, but do the sort of instill fear thing where you sort of move, or the old instill fear thing where stuff sort of moves away. So it kind of meant I was able to back up a few orcs and gain a bit of crowd control around Birder a little bit. But it meant I was able to pick my fights, so I kind of just blocked Birder out and put Thranduil and then 4 elves in. I was hoping just to get a bit lucky, to be fair, but then sort of just Alpha Strike. And then I was able to sort of block stuff off elsewhere. So I sort of blocked up my left flank to sort of prevent Warg slipping through, and my right flank. This is the other thing: is Dan left a Warg chief in range of Leggy. And at the time, I was a bit like, well, he is in range, but I also have a habit of just chucking Leggy into stuff and Leggy dying. So it's probably the Warg chief probably should have been out of charge of Leggy, but equally, I was probably quite gutsy to charge him in, frankly. So I don't know. Maybe it was just will class bait. To be fair. So anyway. Shooting is obviously uneventful. Not too much shooting this whole game. I don't think Leggy does anything really interesting, to be honest. Shooting's kind of not going to come up very much. But yeah, I think first turn I beat Birder and put some wounds on him, and again I think the overall theme of the early turns and me doing quite well. I think against the orcs, I sort of thin the herd out quite a lot, and I do sort of lose a reasonable number of elves where they're trapped or being charged by wargs or what have you. I think I sort of start to thin the herd a reasonable amount in the early game, but I think where it sort of starts to come unstuck a bit is I beat Birder a second turn in a row, and again I can't remember if it was the move off that let me get some control. I must say I'm probably going to start taking notes from tournaments, because I'm recording this the day after, and I'm struggling to remember who rolled what. Just because sort of the burnout's a bit sort of epic in real life, so it kind of means my memory's pretty bad at the moment. But so I promise the next one I'll remember more rolls and stuff. But I was able to get Thranduil in again. I think I had to combat off of an orc and put him back in or something. But then I caused some more wounds. I think I left him alive on 1 wound, and then sort of the third turn when Birder was against Thranduil, I think he was able to. Basically Thranduil was fighting a random orc, and Burda was able to sort of barge the 4 guys he was fighting and then get into Thranduil, beat Thranduil, rendered him. I think I'd spent all my fate, but Thranduil was untouched. But I think the 3 turns of Burda being alive is kind of what diddled me in the end, because I think I started to lose elves at this point. So in the middle, things were still going relatively okay, but on Leggy's flank, things were sort of coming a bit unstuck as I sort of started to run out of elves. And Leggy did sort of okay, but again, he started to run out of might a bit. And in a turn when I lost priority, I decided not to call the move with Leggy because I know he's a massive whiffer. So I just thought I'll save the might for winning a combat. So Dan sort of wisely just put 2 orcs in on him and then sort of had all his, Wild Chief and stuff and sort of Wild Riders munching more important things. And then Leggy loses the combat, and I could have mighted to win the combat, but I thought I'm against 2 orcs and like that's not going to kill him. And then obviously the orcs rolled 2 6s, and then I think I fail what's left of my fate. I'm not sure if I might have lost sort of a fate or something beforehand, or I just sort of epically whiffed the fate rolls. But either way, Leggy died to 2 orcs, and I was untrapped. And we were sort of talking after, and I think it did make sense for me to not spend the might because you wouldn't expect Leggy to die to 2 orcs, but that's what happened. So my sort of right flank started to fold a fair amount. Thranduil sort of held firm with his little band of dudes in the middle, but then my left had sort of collapsed as well, and it sort of meant Dan was able to filter through and get my objective at the back. And I think my guy holding my back objective ran away as well once I was broken. So it was kind of there's a 5-point swing there, I think, as well. Maybe he killed him. I honestly can't remember. It wasn't ideal. So I sort of ended up with a band of elves doing okay in the middle, Thranduil untouched. But other than that, it kind of all went to pot. But I think Dan played it very well, and I think my overall strategy is possibly okay in terms of I've got to break him in the middle of the board. Literally break his army in terms of sort of killing half, but also just sort of breaking the back of it in terms of sort of clearing up enough models to they kind of filter through and sort of kind of push some models towards his back objective and sort of clean up around the middle objectives and all that sort of stuff, and hopefully control the end of the game a bit. But it didn't work out like that, and I think Dan played it perfectly in terms of sort of running rings around my elves and not worrying too much about Thranduil as long as Burda was tar pitting. So good job, Dan. And I ended up losing that 16-3. 16-3, yeah, because he dropped kills. I'm sorry, he dropped VPs for not killing, not even wounding my leader, and then there was one side objective where he only outnumbered me. He wasn't the only one on the objective, and then I got 3 because I think I killed Burda, and I might just have broken him or something. I'm not sure, but Anyway, so that was that. So on to the second game. Right, so game 2, I was against Anthony Nicklin's Defenders of Helm's Deep. So this was who was it? Theoden, Aragorn, Haldir, and then Aldor. I think that's his name, isn't it? The old dude with the bow. So you got those 4 heroes, and then I think about 4 elf archers, 3 Rohan archers, bunch of sort of Rohan warrior throwing spears, a few Lothlorien spear and shields, and sword and shields, and just sort of a few Rohan warriors as well, and Rohan banner. So it was a good old mix. So we were playing Hold Ground, which is weigh Maelstrom on and try and sort of rush to the middle. And with Maelstrom, obviously the games can be very swingy. I was quite happy in terms of this game because obviously the Maelstrom set the whole tone of the battle, but it didn't sort of decide the game, which was nice because sometimes it just can. It's really annoying. But yeah, so I kind of thought all my Christmases came at once when I won the first priority, which in this edition means that I can now just give it to Anthony to deal with, which I duly did. I think he ends up spending a might on, I want to say Haldir, to get all his models where he wanted, but he ended up being able to bring all his guys on his table edge, basically. So he had Aragorn in the middle, presumably sort of with a clear channel to just march towards the middle objective, and then he had Theoden and Haldir sort of holding sort of his flank between this building and the board edge. I then failed to bring Thranduil on turn 1, so he rolled a 1. I was just like, I'm not going to mind that. And then Leggy rolled a 5 or 6, which meant east or west. So I basically brought him on the side table edge, just in front of his main warband. And I set up so I could sort of shoot turn 1 with Leggy and my 4 archers. And then I kind of just started to form a battle line. Although I very stupidly left my Mirkwood Knights out in the open, but luckily Anthony wasn't shooting turn 1, but I'm pretty sure I left them somewhere idiotic the following turns. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of how we broadly set up. Following turn, so Anthony won priority, gave it to me, or won the roll off and gave me priority, whatever you would say. I rolled what did I roll? I think I rolled a 3. And I had to might it up to a 4 because I was like, if he puts me on the sideboard, he'll just put me sort of diagonally opposite to where the action was. So I think I had to spend the might. It was north or south, so basically I was stuck coming on behind him somewhere, and I was trying to decide whether I stick him behind Aragorn's warband and just try and kill that warband, then come across. Because it's a small warband, and yes, Aragorn is in it, but I don't know. I didn't hate my chances, but yeah, Aragorn was going to be tough, and he might end up tarpeting me or whatever. So I ended up just bringing him on right behind Theoden and Haldir's lot, and that's with the view of pushing Legolas's lot in as well, and then deathballing, because that's obviously what I want to be doing with Thranduil's Halls. Is chuck in Thranduil into fights where he's outnumbered, killing everyone, getting free combats, just chopping, and then him being a banner, and then +1 to wound with my boys around. So, the Elf Warriors obviously being +1 to wound. The only problem was I knew I'd basically have to weather the storm because it meant that I came on and I'm just like, well, obviously he's going to have a turn to charge me. And obviously because I didn't know where they were coming on, I don't think I pushed his warband up very much. So it meant it kind of, if I'd have gone second, it probably would have all been a lot better in terms of me pulling off this amazing maneuver. Because I went first, it was a bit like, I've got to weather the storm and then hope that next turn I'm then sort of free to reposition. And that's broadly how it worked out. I think I had unfavourable fights, obviously, because Anthony was able to pick them and, not charging Thranduil and sort of, he sort of boxed out half of my warband as well. So kind of where Thranduil was in the line, he didn't charge anything sort of between him and the board edge. So he kind of started to sort of roll up his flank a bit, just to sort of protect it and sort of pick some favourable fights. And I lost a few elves, but it was sort of to be expected. But then the following turn, I think I either won prior or the roll off again. There were a few moves caught, but I can't remember exactly when they were. Oh no, this had to be a move, didn't it? Yeah, so Thranduil had to call a move. I won the roll off. Because I remember because one archer was out and he basically got left, and I wasn't really annoyed. I was annoyed because he was out. I wasn't able to move him out of the way, which meant Aragorn was able to get into him, and then that basically makes a combat possible. And because I had to use 2 guys right next to the board edge to basically block out a sort of flank, it left an Aragorn-sized hole there, so it kind of just gave Aragorn a route in. However, it did mean that I was able to completely reposition how I wanted, pick favourable fights, get Thranduil in against 2 Royal Guards to hopefully get the combats going the following turn. And obviously Leggy was out of position here, so he was just moving forwards half and shooting. And again, his warband would sort of be useful the following turn, but they were kind of broadly ending up where I wanted. And it sort of meant that we were in sort of a concave. Well, I was in a concave sort of formation with him in the middle, which I was very happy with. But I left my knights in a stupid place and they got shot. I think one got killed and another dehorsed, or he might have got dehorsed later, I can't remember. But yeah, it was pretty idiotic. And Leggy was lucky to not get dehorsed. But yeah, there's not too much to say really in terms of the combat. I think I'll sort of go over it very quickly. Is Aragorn sort of slowly chopped through, but he had a few fluffs, but nothing where he sort of picked up wounds or anything significant. Just sort of, I think a combat didn't go off, and then you might have combated into someone, then not killed, that sort of thing. So he did have a few fluffs, but nothing major. Thranduil was just absolutely chopping up. It was pretty nuts actually, and then eventually Aragorn got into Thranduil and they sort of bounced off each other towards the end of the game. I think Aragorn won and then didn't wound because obviously he doesn't have Andril, so it's less scary. I initially had the upper hand, I felt, in terms of me chopping through his boys, but then I think by the end of the game it was actually relatively even on numbers because I think the last couple of turns my warriors took a bit of a drubbing, but ultimately it didn't matter because I was able to move. I think I moved a knight, a dismounted knight, and then 3 archers from Leggy's warband to the middle, and then eventually Leggy himself, because I actually ended up calling a move with him, sort of 3 turns from the end. And although Anthony won the roll off, Leggy was out of range because I think Theoden called it from right the other end. And it just meant I was able to get Leggy out of there, and then he could run to the middle. And he only had a few archers sort of on the opposite side of this building that could do anything, and he was taking some shots, but eventually they just all ended up running away, and it meant that I basically ended up being able to keep his whole army contained in this sort of fight that sort of started when I enveloped him sort of coming on the board in the first place, and it was good basically because it meant I was able to pick the fight as far away as humanly possible from anything good, filter through a few infantry models, but sort of quickly move over some cav models as well. So I think the objective was always going to be in my hands, and then it was sort of whatever points he could pick up in terms of breaking me and killing leaders and stuff. So I think strategy went well, dice went well, and not like not sort of super duper lucky. I would say I think it was sort of all very average, but no massive whiffs. So that was good. But yeah, it sort of played out how I hoped it would. But I think Anthony put up a good fight. But I think once he was sort of boxed in and being exclusively infantry, I think it was always going to be quite tough. Especially since I sort of had the numbers early on when I had a sort of few good turns of chopping early on. But yeah, so that ended 13-3. But yeah, so a win and a loss going into lunch. Okay, so fresh from lunch, we ended up playing our sister team. I can't remember what it was called. Is it Goldilocks, wasn't it? And the 3 bears. Oh yes, I see that does. Yeah, that's very clever. I ended up playing Goldilocks himself, Cameron Bell. Obviously, I've played him on the channel quite a few times, although not recently, to be fair. So probably need to rectify that. But yeah, I always loved playing Cam, but I was also conscious that the battle's sort of half won before a dice is rolled because I know Cam's a better player than me, and he sort of has this quiet confidence that sort of I don't know. It seems to do the trick against me. So I sort of look at him, and I feel like he's sort of thinking wheels within wheels. And when I move something, I sort of look at him, and I'm like, I bet he knows like why that's a wrong move, and he's going to completely sort of reverse it as soon as it's his move. So it's always unnerving. Most intimidating man in the world, I think. So anyway, so he was playing Assault on Helm's Deep. I really appreciated this list actually because it's just 3 captains, obviously one of them being the leader, and 23 berserkers, and then sort of a smattering of pikes, a banner, and a crossbow. So yeah, it's a great list. But I mean, looking at our lists, you surely back mine to win because we're both fight 5. Obviously, a big part of the berserkers is now fight 5 2 attacks. But if I'm fight 5 with an elven blade and I can sort of go front to back with a shield wall, you'd sort of think law of averages, I'd probably eke that out. But we will see. So what we were playing Destroyer Supplies, and it was a busier board, but still sort of plenty of open spaces for shooting. So I'm kind of shuffled about a bit with my battle line, and then did some shooting. And whilst I think I guess I was probably right to shoot. It just meant that when we fought about anywhere between sort of 8 and 12 inches away from my objectives, and we were further from his, so it wasn't great. I think I did quite well early on in terms of the positional warfare because I think Cam sort of had his boys spread out on 2 sides of this sort of central building, and he sort of pushed one warband forwards on my left flank, but then sort of moved it back as if to sort of bring it round and go in behind his main warband. And I think I did sort of fairly well in sort of kind of not falling too hard for it, keeping enough guys on my left, as well as Thranduil fairly central. So it kind of meant I had it covered if he did end up going back around. So I was quite pleased with that. I think the main event early on is that I spent 2 might to kill 2 berserkers on Leggy, and that's sort of fairly controversial, but I think I killed 1 berserker in shooting otherwise, but there were these 3 berserkers coming down my right flank, and I didn't have a ton of stuff to deal with them. I just thought, look, I've got to take berserkers off early. I think if I just kill loads of berserkers early on, then that's that's how to win, obviously. So I spent 2 might to kill 2, and I don't know if I would do it again in retrospect, but I sort of felt like I had to sort of thin numbers down, and it meant that I had sort of 2 archers and a cav against his sort of lone berserker that was sort of free around the flanks. So I felt quite comfortable about that, because then I could sort of charge the knight around to threaten his objectives, because he only left his banner and his crossbow at the back to protect his 3 back objectives, and I had 3 knights. But I think I made a mistake in terms of on the left flank. Although I kind of didn't fall for that initial gambit, I was still thinner on my left than I would have liked to have been, and it meant I ended up having to press my 2 knights into service, so that I basically got 2 attacks with each of them on the charge, and then I was able to sort of get 2 elves into each berserker, so sort of a 2 attacks each sort of situation. Two attacks per side situation, but with my Elven Blade hopefully tipping the balance. It didn't play out like that, and the Mirkwood Knights just went down like a sack of poo in the end, which kind of diddled me, because I think what I should have done, like Cam said at the end of the game, is just not engage them at all, just completely run them round the side and just ignore everyone, just go straight for the supplies. But I sort of felt like I had to press them into service, sort of punch these 2 berserkers out of the way and then carry on, and it just did not play out like that, and it just meant I had a sort of massive asset then gone. In terms of sort of very quickly on the left flank, I think it was I started taking a bit of a kicking, but then after that it completely turned around. I had a turn where I just chopped up loads of berserkers. So it kind of, it was quite hard pressed, but I think kind of initially Cam did quite well on the kills, and then towards the end I did quite well on the kills, so it was kind of nothing too major. But we'll come back to what happened in the end. But the main event was sort of the sort of battle line around Thranduil and Leggy, and Thranduil did well turn 1, because I basically wanted to get his combats going, so I was like, Thranduil cutting through berserkers is exactly what needs to happen. So I charged him into 2 berserkers who are supported by pikes. Called the combat. I think I had to spend a might to then win the combat. So I spent 2 might doing that, but then I killed both berserkers, charged the 2 pikes at the back, killed them as well, and obviously that's free combat the following turn. So it was going well. But then I sort of took a bit of a pounding elsewhere. So this on my right flank, where I had 2 archers and the charging knight, the berserker rolled a 6 and then won the Elven Blade rolled off, and then did one of the things where he did 1 strike on everyone. And I don't think he killed my horse the first time around. I think it was he then won the roll off the following turn and killed the horse. So no, he didn't kill the horse. No, sorry, he didn't kill the horse. I'm making stuff up. But so I was kind of gutted not to have won that one, because then I could start filtering my horse and maybe even an archer past or something. But it just meant like he was kind of held up for more turns basically. And again, between sort of around Leggy, I took a bit of a pounding in terms of, I think about 4 or so elves died. But I got quite lucky with Legolas in that he charged in the first turn, and I think he didn't do a whole lot. But then he sort of got counter-charged, because I'd done this thing where I basically spaffed all his might, because obviously I spent 2 killing those 2 berserkers early on. It meant he had 1 might, and then I think essentially a move off, which I... Oh wait, no, in fact, I was sort of keeping his last might to avoid whiffs, which did happen, because he rolled a 5 high and a fight, and then I had to spend that last one to win. But Leggy did quite well in terms of just not dying, because I think, first turn when I charged in, he obviously did okay, because he had the charge bonus and stuff. And then he rolled a 5 the following turn, which I combined to a 6. Then the following turn after that, he rolled a 6. So I did quite well in terms of Leggy actually just not dying. And yeah, Thranduil was sort of again. Thranduil was quite lucky in that he was sort of chopping around a bit, and then Cam chucked a captain in him to sort of tar pick. 'Cause obviously, I still need 6s to wound, and if I'm not outnumbered as well, then I'm not re-rolling to wounds. But then I won the combat, and then sure enough, because I think I had to spend the might to win the combat. I spent my last might actually to win the combat, and then I rolled 3 6s, and I just put a captain straight in the ground. So there was a bit of unluckiness, but then a bit of like mega luck as well in terms of the dice. So it did even out eventually over the course of the game. Even I felt a bit. The salt mines were sort of threatening to open early on when I lost the Elven Blade roll off. Cause I think it's because we went right to left. I lost the Elven Blade roll off, and I lost about sort of 4 elves in a row after that or something. So I was a bit like, it'd be good if I could win a fight. But then they sort of eventually did even out, so it was all good. But yeah, so that's kind of the main thing. It meant that he was able to, call, when he didn't win a priority, he was able to call moves. I couldn't do anything about it because I'd spaffed all my might. So it meant he had sort of complete control, which meant even though he didn't really outnumber me, he was able to pin my dudes down and stick a berserker on my back right objective and send another one to my central objective. And although I was able to sort of filter through a knight to get his, sort of as I look at it, his back right, and then I had a couple of dudes going for his back left. Yeah, I was... Because of the banners as well being worth points, I was already at sort of 2 or 4 point disadvantage depending on if his banner ran away when he broke. But yeah, it kind of went to pot a bit because just in terms of the objectives, I was sort of unlucky to lose my back central objective because I think I had an elf run away that was sort of fairly important, but then he was able to sort of pin down pin down the rest because I think he won the priority or something, and then get a berserker on my middle one, so he took that. But then I was quite lucky in that his leader was going for my back left after he sort of filtered through a bit. I think he combated off an elf, which succeeded. But then the following turn he completely whiffed his courage, and his leader ran off, which was going for one of my objectives, which was that's 3 points, isn't it? And then also the leader, I get the leader kill, so that was a massive swing. But then on the flip side, when I was trying to take his back right, my knight ran away, and I was able to get his back left because I had 2 models. He shot one of them with a crossbow with a sort of, I guess, slightly lucky shot, but then his crossbow ran away as he was all moving to intercept my other guy, so it meant I could sort of then put my palace guard with bodyguard on that objective and take that. So yeah, it was a really good game. It was I think it could have gone either way. I think I didn't play it. I think I played it badly, but I think I played a couple of things wrong in terms of chucking the knights in just because I felt like I needed the bodies to sort of cut through a few berserkers and get through, and just having that risk, which obviously didn't play out, was a bit foolish, I think. And then yeah, spaffing Leggy's might, I don't know, because 2 berserkers, if they got a bit lucky with the rolls as well, could have caused absolute carnage. So actually getting them off the board, I don't know. But I think challenging the move offs would have been more important, because it also meant that I'd created a lot of space in the centre around Thranduil in particular, and I was going to start filtering a few guys past, but I just couldn't because I obviously lost the priority or was sort of subject to a move, so I just got pinned down every time. So yeah, but I think Cam played it beautifully, of course, annoyingly. But yeah, so I lost that 12-7, but really, really enjoyed the game, so that's the main thing. Okay, so game 4, I have to admit by this point I was like really sweaty and tired because it was absolutely roasting. Well, it wasn't as bad as it was earlier in the week, but it's still like 30 degrees or something, and lots of sweaty nerds in one place. There's bound to be trouble. But so last one was Contest of Champions, which I was super pleased about, obviously, because I got Thranduil, and then I was less pleased when although I was against Tom Marsh, who's a lovely opponent, slightly displeased to be against Erebor Reclaimed with he had obviously Thorin, Gloin, Ori, and Bofa, and then just loads of Iron Hills. And there's 2 elements to this which really suck. Is that so I think Thorin gets 3 combats when he charges or something, doesn't he? And then he also is just a really nasty hero in terms of sort of high fight. But then even if you do beat him, he's like D9 or something silly, so you're gonna struggle unless you're a monster or something. But the other aspect is in terms of me racking up the kills, is I got to get through dwarves, which if they're in shield, actually it doesn't make shield wall doesn't make a difference for strength 4, but either way I still need 6s, so it's even needing 5s would have made a massive difference on sort of most warrior models. But I think it was going to be tough. I immediately didn't read the rules properly, and I forgot that you had to roll to see where your sort of non-champion warbands deploy. So I sort of set Thranduil up with sort of 3 Palace Guard hanging out as if there's going to be sort of 3 guys from Leggy's warband in front of them, forgetting that I had to roll, and then Leggy ended up having to deploy at the back, which wasn't great. And again, I think Tom had to deploy Thorin in the middle, obviously, which was fine. And he kind of deployed a fairly protected ring around him, which I was fairly happy about this. But then, unfortunately, both Gloin and both, I think it's both, is it both or Ori? I can't remember now. The problem with Thorin's company is, I swear, loads of the dwarves just feel so interchangeable, like just not as well established as the Fellowship in the first films. Anyway, yeah. So one of them I think was Bofa, ends up in the middle as well. So it meant I had 3 warbands against my 1, and I think if I'd have gotten a bit luckier, well, I mean, I'd have to be quite a bit luckier just to have Thorin, but it was a few more dwarves than I'd like, but not the end of the world, I suppose, because I also won the first turn priority, so I was quite pleased with that. So obviously Leggy's warband just sort of pushed up. I didn't bother with the bows sort of farting around with that. I just sling them forwards. But it meant I was able to put Thranduil into 2 dwarves, which is exactly what I need to do. And it meant I was able to sort of box Thorin out a little bit. But obviously I wasn't able to box him out completely, because obviously Tom deployed in such a way that obviously he would get into something, even if it was just one model. But I think Tom might have even whiffed to the first turn with Thorin, because I remember him being on 0 kills for a while. Well, it wasn't a while, but like a turn or 2 maybe. But I think Thorin got in and killed both of his opponents. I'm not sure that I heroic. I think I might have just been on 2 kills at this point, but I don't think this game needs a massive analysis, to be fair, because I think basically what happened is the dwarves sort of churned through my elves, because obviously my bubble around Thranduil in terms of sort of death balling was quite helpful, but I kind of got outmighted and outmoved a few times, and it meant that he was able to get all his heroes into Thranduil, and short of running away, I couldn't do too much about that, and he was then getting the traps and stuff, and it just meant my elves started to go down a lot, and Thranduil sort of struggled on for a few turns, but he went down as well. And I promise it's not just because I'm salty, but I do think the thing where the hero on the fewer amount of kills gets to call a free move every turn is just so weird, because it meant that because I'm like a 2 hero army with 6 might total, and obviously that 6 might has got to do quite a lot of lifting. It means I can't just sort of chuck moves about when I don't sort of absolutely have to. It's just annoying, because it kind of meant that because I'd sort of tried to open the gates early on in case I got bogged down or something, it then meant I was just sort of having to worry about these moves all the time. So it basically meant that Thranduil got sort of eventually got trapped, because I first turn I was able to engineer it in such a way he could back away, and I think he may have copped a couple of wounds or something. Or in fact, I think he just blasted through his fate, so he copped a couple of wounds and then saved him using all his fate. But then the following turn, I just got trapped and Thranduil died, and I think there's not too much else to say, to be honest, other than the dwarf sort of just cleared up my elves, and it's one of those where as soon as if it was a friendly, I think as soon as Thranduil died, and then a couple of turns for Thorin to get more kills than me, he'd have probably just said, that's a win, call it a day sort of thing. But because we're in a tournament setting and in a team setting, I was sort of about to play till the bitter end. It just basically consisted of my elves dying over the course of 4 or 5 turns. But Yeah, so I ended up getting 20-0'd on that one because I didn't end up breaking him. There was a time when I thought it might be possible, but I think when Thranduil died, it just all went to pot really. But yeah, so I think Tom played everything sort of pretty much bang on, and I must admit, like, so when I played against Cam and Dan and lost, I learned, probably more from the game against Cam in terms of what I should have done. But with this one, I sort of looked at it and I was a bit like, yeah, I don't really know what to do because it's sort of Thorin and Dwarves that I'm against in contest champions is always going to be hard. But yeah, it was a nice, pleasant game to end on anyway, even if it was a bit of a drubbing. So yeah, so that's the end of it. So I ended up with 1 win and 3 losses, which is not what you like to see. Because you like to break even on at least 2 wins, 2 losses, but it was not to be. So I'm not going to linger too long on the results because I don't really know what they mean, which I know I should, but I think it's you sort of you score points as a team, and I think you basically count as winning or losing or drawing against that team depending on the outcome of your matches. So I think as a team we won 1 and lost 3, and I think that's because we won. I think we all won our games in the second round, or at least near. Oh no, one of our team lost, but yeah. So we won 3 games in the second round, so that's the one we count as winning, and then the other ones we sort of took a bit of a drubbing, really. So, but we ended up not quite spooning. So, so that was yeah. We avoided the spoon, and I think we got most sporting as well. So that was that's always nice as well. So yeah, it was good. Yeah, the format's interesting. I think I must admit I don't really have much interest in teams events. I kind of did one in Manchester a few years ago, and it's kind of just scarred me for life, really. So I just sort of did this as an opportunity to play with all the boys, basically. But I did like the format in terms of the agenda being set by having sort of one good and evil sort of Hobbit and Lord of the Rings army, and it kind of meant you didn't have to worry about just having sort of a malicious matchup for the sake of the team or something like, oh, don't worry, I'll take Radagast's Alliance or Men of the West just for the sake of the team. I'll lose my game and have a horrible time. There's none of that. So I think if I was going to do teams again, it would be this sort of format. So I think it was yeah, probably in my opinion the best way of doing the whole teams thing. And yeah, I had a good time actually. So glad the heat didn't drive us off. So yeah, had a really good time. But yeah, didn't do much for everyone's GBHL score, but I don't even know what mine is, to be honest. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll catch you at the next one.